So I did my final on the Ford Model T, and I believe that it started a revolution. A bit of history about the Model T. The Ford Model T was also known as the Lizzie, and it was a labor child of Henry Ford. Before the mass production of the Model T started, there was no mass production of any complex machinery. Just like only factories were in meat houses for butchers, and everything else was done by hand one at a time. And Ford sought to change this. Through the years of design iteration and production tests, he found the perfect combination of the functionality, production speed, and the design. Originally, for the car manufacturing, it took like 514 minutes to repeat a single task, which essentially meant that it took 514 minutes to produce a car. And with the production of the Model T, Ford brought this down by multiple orders of magnitude to 2.3 minutes, leading to over 2.3 million cars produced a year. And why does the Tin Lizzie matter? Well, the Model T, I believe, revolutionized the world. The mass production of this car allowed the manufacturing revolution, and consequently, our modern life. He was the first one to produce mass-produce cars, and all others soon followed. Before the Model T, all complex machinery was produced by hand by skilled craftsmen, which meant that it was very expensive and very slow. While Ford was the first to mass-produce cars, he was not the first person to have this factory-style work. As I mentioned before, the first factories were in butcheries, so you can get your bacon. With the first cars, many of which were steam actually, they had to have every single one of those thousands of parts custom made for that car, just so they would fit together, meaning that they were only for the super rich. The standardizing of fasteners, which was just a happy coincidence when Ford started to produce his dream. And this is a picture of Model T chassis being constructed. While you see no workers and everything's really slow, this picture probably was taken during night or morning hours just to make it easier to see what's happening. And the Model T allowed everyone to own a car. Once it first hit the road, they were instant hit among the commoners like ourselves. Being only $800 when it first started being produced, it quickly dropped to $300, while other cars of that same time period were over $1,000. And the Model T allowed everyone to own a car. Once the Model T hit the road, they were an instant hit among common folk. Being only $800 during the time, which is equivalent to about $22,000 in the first few years, it dropped very quickly to less than $300, which is about $8,000 a car, which is extremely good even to today's standards. The other cars of the time were $1,000 or over 27,000, and they were powered by steam. Ford brought factories to the worldwide attention. Manufacturers would come all around the globe to see how the heck Ford was producing the cars so fast. They of course took notes and began working on their own factory lines, and which would become eventually better ones at that. And at one point, the Model T comprised over 40% of all cars sold in the United States at its prime. And this is a mid-20s Model T. And as a famous quote by Henry Ford, you can have any color as long as it's black. And this was because he wanted to expedite speeds. And the color of paint he used would dry especially quickly compared to other ones at the time. And when he first started producing the car, it was only available in black. The legacy that the Model T left on the world was forever impacted. Even after the Model T's days had passed, manufacturing techniques continued to improve. the competition caught up and even surpassed Ford. They began to produce better, faster, cleaner, and more efficient vehicles. More and more machines began to become more affordable to the common people. Even long after the Model T's death, we still use the same basic concepts that Ford laid out. This includes literally everything we use in life. And this graph shows the decline of US traction after the other companies began to make their own factories. Oh. The moving assembly line, which is what Henry Ford used for his production, is still used in literally everything. The moving assembly line has led to more affordable luxuries. Like, take instance airlines. Boeing uses this concept to mass produce their airlines. This leads to cheaper fares overall for travelers because there's more planes, and that means demand is lower, which means everything's cheaper. And this concept is this is a concept that is in place in almost every factory in this world. The mass production of complex vehicles has also allowed for population growth. This is because tractors have become more affordable, so not just the super rich plantation owners could own them. At the beginning of the 1900s, before Ford had started producing the Model T, the population was just over 1.6 billion people. And as the 120 years passed, we have grown to over 4.7 times more people on this planet, leading to 7.6 billion. This is partially due to medical improvements, but it's also due to the abundance of food that we now produce, which wouldn't have been possible if we were still making every tractor by hand. In conclusion, the Model T started a new chapter in our history. Without Ford's thinking of speed, we would not have many commodities we take advantage of today. While someone probably and could have came to do what Ford did, it would have taken many decades after him. And this would have resulted in us being less technologically advanced. And then my citations. God damn.